Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to the second virtual session I'm hosting as part of my Girl Scout Gold Award project. Thank you all for coming. I just want to reiterate one more time that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube later today, so you can always go back and access it and others can watch it in the future. Today we'll be talking about biomedical engineering and hearing from two guest speakers about their experiences as Hispanics in the field of biomedical engineering. Before we get started, um, I would usually have a form to fill out about what you learned from this session, but because we don't have as many people here today, I'll just have it linked in the YouTube description. So for those watching at home, you can check that out. I'll have it in the description box. So let's just get started. The first thing I want to do is meet our guest speakers. So we have Jesica McLane and Stanley Vinet. So Jesica, I'll have you go first by telling us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what university you attended, what major you studied, your job title, whatever you want.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. Like Rachel said, my name's Jesica McLane. I did my undergrad at University of Florida. I majored in material science engineering. I was there for 4.5 years, and then I did my master's up at Georgia Tech. It was a joint program actually between Georgia Tech and Emory University, and I did my master's in biomedical engineering. So that's a little bit about my scholastic background. I did research both at UF and at Georgia Tech while I was there. Afterwards, I've worked at a couple of the bigger medical device companies. Biomedical engineering, you can do medical device or pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of different things you can do, but I chose medical device. I worked at Johnson & Johnson at first, and then a small startup called Heartware, which was eventually bought out by Medtronic. And then a medium-sized company, Terumo Aortic. I worked there for a little while, always in class 3 medical devices. After about a decade and a half of doing that, I started my own consulting company. So I work for myself now, McLane Consulting. And yeah, I pretty much, I do regulatory affairs. I also do some product development and some quality engineering consulting as well. But I'm specializing now mostly in regulatory affairs within the biomedical engineering arena.
That's great. Now we can have you go, Stanley. So can you say your name, where you're from, what university you attend, what major, whatever you like?
First, also, thank you so much for having us, Rachel. I also appreciate the opportunity to come and share my passion for biomedical engineering. So, hi, my name is Stanley Vinet. I am currently a senior at Vanderbilt University, and I'm studying biomedical engineering. So, I'll be graduating in May with a degree in biomedical engineering. But definitely, like, if you have like more questions about what it's like going through schooling through BME, I'm sure it's a bit more fresh on my mind than it is for Jessica. But I am from, so Vanderbilt is in Nashville, Tennessee, but I'm from the central coast of California, San Luis Obispo County. And so it's a bit of a ways to get from home to here, but I think that's something I want to do to just sort of get out, explore, and grow. As far as here at Vanderbilt, I've also done a lot of research related things, in part because even though I'm studying biomedical engineering, what I'm considering doing is applying to medical school after I graduate and being a doctor kind of thing. That's the route that I'm currently on. So my plan is to take a gap year, which would mean I would graduate this coming May and then start applying to medical schools. And then I'll have like a year before, I'll have like a year off, which would more so be working in medical devices or doing more research, doing something like that to sort of like bridge the time between undergrad and medical school. And yeah, I do a lot of, I guess, other things on campus that college students do. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, so from here on out, I'll ask a few questions and you two can answer when you're ready. So either of you can go first, depending on what you prefer. If you need a minute to think about it, that's totally fine. And then I don't know, we have a Q&A, so if anyone who showed up wants to ask a question, they can, but yeah, we'll get started. So the first question is, what do you do in a typical day, and what does your average workload or class load look like? So who wants to go first?
I can go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it.
So yeah, so for me, a typical day. So I'm currently like living in a dorm here at Vanderbilt. At Vanderbilt, at least they provide like on-campus housing all 4 years. Other universities, they'll only like provide like 3 years or 2 years, or maybe they'll only guarantee it for the first year. But Vanderbilt puts a large emphasis on trying to keep their student body on campus. So I'm living like in the dorm. So usually I'll like wake up, I don't know, go to a dining hall, get food, and then go to my classes. Depending on how I've made my schedule for the semester, it might be I have a lot of classes in the morning and then I have nothing in the evenings, or maybe I only have like labs in the evening. But usually it's, I don't know, between an hour and a half to 2.5 hours of class each day, depending on like the schedule and just like what my semester workload looks like. But then otherwise, like between that, it's just like a lot of time, I guess, like spent studying. As far as workload, I will say that going from like high school to college was definitely an adjustment. Just the classes are a lot more demanding and like rigorous than they were in high school, at least for me. Like I know some friends that went to, I guess, great high schools and they can't come to college and say it's actually a little bit less work. But I think for the most part, if you go to going from high school to university, it's going to be a lot more. Also, like since I'm biomedical engineering and pre-med, I have to take all of my BME classes, but then I also have to take all of my pre-med classes. So that during like my sophomore and junior years, my class loads were a lot heavier. So I was like taking your like organic chemistry, your biochemistry, things like that on top of like statistics classes for engineering or physiology, uh, things like that. But usually I'm like working pretty much around the clock as far as like studying, but usually like on weekends, I'll like find time to do fun things with friends. Like yesterday, I don't know if you've ever played Catan. It was like a board game that we were playing. And like I'm gonna go on a hike after like this Zoom is over. So there's also like time for you to do fun things outside of just classes.
Yeah, that's really great. So Jessica, do you want to answer?
Yeah, so my day looks a lot different now than what it did when I was working at larger companies, right? So when I worked at J&J and Hardware and Terumo, it was pretty much like an 8 to 5 expectation on site, which at the time I loved because I mean I was in new product development to start out with, and I did quality engineering for a little while, and I loved being with our products, touching our products, testing our products. I mean, there's only so much physical testing that you can do working remote. So being on site was invaluable to me, but there wasn't much flexibility with time. Now that I work for myself and I do consulting, I only take the projects that I want to take. So my typical day, that's not very typical, but I get myself ready in the morning, and I usually do most of my writing, most of my working. I write test plans, I write submissions to FDA and overseas to BSI notified bodies, which is like kind of like the version of FDA for Europe. I do most of my writing in the morning, and then come lunchtime, I'll break away from that, and I'll do a lot more of my, project proposals, project reviews. I'm my own company, so I have to do my billing and my invoicing. I don't have a paycheck that comes every other week. I do my own invoicing, which is great because I can really control which project proposals I want to accept and which ones I'll decide not to accept. It would have been really hard to do this right out of school. I think working in industry for a long time, a really long time, over a decade, helps build those connections so that when you want projects or you want interesting work to do, you just have to make a phone call. And I don't think I would have had those connections coming straight out of school. Even going to great universities, you don't have the kind of industry connections that you do after being out there for a while and getting recognized while you're out there. But now I'm very fortunate that I have more work than I can possibly do. So I do turn down projects. And I get to work on what I really love to do, which I love working on class 3 medical devices. I just think they're really interesting. It's the most complicated class. Well, with the exception of combination devices. Combination devices include drug with the device. Those get a lot more complicated, and I would say those are more like marathons in that they take 10 to 15 years to get approved, whereas class 3 devices that don't have a drug component to them, they're more, 5 years-ish if you're lucky. So I like working on those better because you get to see the finish line a lot sooner than if you're working on the ones that are combined with pharmaceuticals. I don't know. That's kind of what my day looks like. If I need time off, I just schedule myself to do work at other times. If I really love a project and I'm overloaded, I might be working 60, 70-hour weeks. But if I need some downtime, like over summer, I do have a family. I have 3 kids, and I do enjoy traveling with them over summer a lot. So I just schedule my projects down over summer, and that's the way I've handled it.
Yeah, that's the benefit of working for yourself. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So, both of you have had kind of like non-traditional paths maybe, but have you faced any obstacles in your career or studies, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, I can go first on this one.
Sure.
I went to school a lot longer ago. I mean, it wasn't like in the 1800s, right? But I did go to school a while ago. And I was one of 3 or 4 women in engineering when I was going through classes. I'm sure you have a very different experience now, but there weren't very many women in material science. And I would say maybe it went up a little bit more when I was in biomedical engineering up at Georgia Tech, but not by much. So I got very accustomed in school for it being like a mostly male environment, and that definitely transposed into industry. So, I think it always takes a while for people to recognize you for your abilities, and I don't think that's a gender thing. I think it's a youth thing where you have to prove yourself, and once you've proven yourself, then you get more complicated projects, or you get to choose more of what you want to do. But there's definitely times where that you have more to offer, and you just have to hold back until you're given the right opportunity, and then you can flourish. That's hard when you're eager to get things done, but once you've overcome that hurdle once or twice, the floodgates open, and you get to do what you're meant to do.
That's great. What about you, Stanley?
Yeah, no, it's funny that I mean, like, very interesting that you say that. I mean, obviously, I'm sure many years ago it definitely was more male dominated, but like in my cohort, like the class of 2024 biomedical engineering, like the men are actually outnumbered by women. So there's actually more like
Oh, that's the
girls in my
opposite
classes
problem.
than yeah. So yeah, it's like, I guess, the opposite problem for me, but no, that's uh yeah, something that like Vanderbilt, I think, does like a good job of, just having like a good like mix of people from a variety of different backgrounds, just like a good split across sort of everything. As far as like obstacles for me, I would say one thing that I've noticed like getting here, like neither of my parents were like BME, neither of my parents are doctors or things like that. And like a lot of people who I've like met here at Vanderbilt, especially considering it's, I guess, a fairly prestigious school kind of thing, is a lot of people have like that what's it called, like generational like support or generational like experience. So a lot of my friends, it's like, oh, my grandparents are doctors, my parents are doctors, I have 3 older brothers that are also doctors, and they have like a lot of guidance and things that they can like turn to, whereas like I don't exactly have that. Or even if it's just like I guess studying for things like in classes and whatnot. But what's really worked and helped me like overcome that is, I guess, just taking advantage of like professors and mentors and research like leads. Like so many people are willing to help if you're willing to like ask for the help. So for example, going to like office hours, you can like get so many things like about a class like clarified that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you don't go in and like talk to the professor. And a lot of people don't even do that. Like a lot of people won't go and like talk to the professors. So really taking advantage of the people who are more experienced like on campus has like really helped me just succeed in classes and also like succeed outside of classes as far as finding like research or like, oh, what do I need to do to like stay on track if I want to go to medical school? What are the classes I need? Um, things like that. So definitely like tapping into the wiser generation that's like above you and there to teach you.
Yeah, I can definitely see how, like, especially with pre-med or biomedical engineering, there can be a lot of like people who have such intense like legacy of people in their family who have gone through the same thing, and it can be difficult for people who don't have that necessarily. But I definitely think your advice is super helpful. So yeah. Um so next question is, what has been each of your favorite parts of working in or studying biomedical engineering? Like, have you had a favorite project, assignment, class, research opportunity, anything like that? Like, just talk about something that you love about it.
Let's see. I think the I guess like in general, the thing that I love about like BME, like the thing that makes me happy when waking up each morning and saying like, oh, I'm glad to be biomedical engineering is definitely like community that I have like here at Vanderbilt. Just like it's it's really fun going through different classes with like the same people like year after year because at least at Vanderbilt, it's not a huge school. So there's probably like 45 seniors like myself that are like in biomedical engineering, and I've had classes with them for the past like 3, 4 years now at this point. So you get to like really know each other, and you just have like that sort of like camaraderie, especially if there's like a really difficult class. You're all like there struggling through it together, and you like are there to help each other. And I guess that's something that I'm grateful for having at Vanderbilt because I know not every like institution provides that sort of, I guess, environment or culture. But that's one thing I really love about being biomedical engineering, aside from the fact that I just love like sciences and learning about the human body and physics, and BME does a good job of melding all of that together. And if I had to say one, like, I guess, experience or thing that's been the most like special to me was actually studying abroad last semester. So I was abroad in Madrid in Spain from January through June, but I was still taking BME courses. So I was able to like still do like all of my like BME things um, while also like being abroad, which was like just like an absolutely fantastic experience. I would highly recommend like looking into it. And depending on like where you go, like here at Vanderbilt, I think it's actually cheap, like believe it or not, it's actually cheaper to be abroad for a semester than it is to be like on campus. So there's definitely, and then there's also like scholarship opportunities and a bunch of other things that you can apply for. So studying abroad was like, I guess a fantastic experience. It's not like super BMU like related per se, but BME is such a, I guess it's grown like it's definitely grown like in the past few decades. So it's definitely grown a lot in the past few decades. So it's moved to be like much more global. So you can also like take advantage of other institutions or universities abroad that are also teaching classes. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. What about you, Jessica?
So I've worked on a lot of products that that were okay, in my opinion, are very, specialized to one particular thing. I probably my favorite product that I worked on was the hardware HVAD, which um, we were a very small startup when I started on that project, and I was a very young engineer. I had been out of school for only a handful of years, and that was a big deal to have just a handful of people running on the startup company trying to make it work. So we got that one to market. That was a great product, but my favorite product. So I'll give you an example. Like this is an SLA of what the hardware pump looked like. And it's a very small pump. It goes directly into the left ventricle. It's for people with heart failure. You can read the indications for use online if you want to. But my favorite product was the next generation that we worked on for a while that never made it to market. Medtronic acquired, and there was a whole host of things that happened, but it was much smaller. It was a mini VAD. And I was on a project to get this mini ventricular assist device into animal studies. And the mad rush of data collection and work that we had to do in order to get that to into being prepared for GLP animal studies. We were a very small team within a bigger organization at the time. And just to basically lock heads and say we're gonna do what it takes to make this happen. It was a lot of work. There's a lot of components that go into any device, but to know that you're getting quality components and how to prove that and how to show that you have a manufacturing process that you can build these devices with, and to show that you are prepared, that you have an entire traceability log on how to get this brand new device into animal studies so that you can prove that it works. It was monumental for us. And at the time nobody really thought that we would get it done on time, and we did, and it was pretty epic. When you go to work for these, even the tiny medical device companies, you kind of think that you're going to landlock yourself, that okay, it's a small little company located in Miami Lakes, Florida, so that's probably where I'm going to stay. But I mean, there's tentacles of medical device that go into every area. I mean, I ended up traveling to Barcelona. I ended up traveling for another company over to Cashel, Ireland. I had to fly for hardware. I had to fly to Tokyo a half dozen times. It's whatever you're doing, do it well, and there will be opportunities for you to travel, to present what you're doing to people that you never thought you'd be there presenting to the Japanese FDA. I mean, if you would have asked me that when I was at Georgia Tech, I would have laughed. I mean, I just didn't think that was something that I would be doing. But it was really exciting. I loved it. I like a lot of the projects I do, but I loved that project.
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting question on my end, but so obviously, like Jessica, you went more of the route, like you appreciate medical devices, but you chose to have a more of a career in actual engineering, whereas Stanley is planning on going the route towards like medical school and being a doctor. So like I want to know both of your thought processes on why you chose one over the other.
So I actually went to school thinking I was going to be a doctor. I'm one of those legacy people where both of my parents, actually, I have a stepmom too. All three of my parents are physicians. My grandfathers were physicians. I was supposed to be a physician according to all of them. But I figured I was real good at math. So why not try engineering? And I had to pick an undergrad, right? So I did it and I fell in love with it. And I think it was just my experiences. I also did a GE co-op while I was at UF. I didn't get to do biomedical engineering in my co-op, but just being in the engineering environment, I just knew that that's what I was going to end up doing. So I bowed out of the pre-med and I decided to go get my master's to specialize in biomedical. But I was supposed to be a doctor. And every once in a while, I think about it, if I should have been. But I'm very happy. And, one day if I win the Powerball, maybe I'll go back to med school for fun. Who knows?
I think you might be one of the only people who would go back to med school for fun.
I would. I know my husband thinks I'm so weird, but I definitely would.
Yeah. What about you, Stanley?
Yeah, so for me, it's like since I'm still like on like the trajectory of like BMU or pre-med or BMU or like medicine, I still haven't like officially like committed to one or the other. And I think that's the beauty of studying biomedical engineering. It's such a rich and diverse, like very versatile field of study. So you can go into like any number of different things. So I know some people who want to go into consulting for all of like the medical device companies. Some people want to be making the actual devices. Some people want to go to like get a PhD and work in like pharmaceuticals or work on like drugs, things like that. Or a bunch of my friends also want to go to medical school. So I like originally chose BME because I always knew that I also really enjoyed math. I liked science. Um, and so it was sort of like, oh, I want to do engineering, but then I also was like, I think I want to be a doctor. I think I want to go to medical school. So it was sort of like biomedical engineering was sort of the in between where I could get both. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I've chosen like going to medicine over BME because I've also really enjoyed studying biomedical engineering like as an undergrad. I just find like the material and like the type of work like very interesting and also rewarding. So like part of me is also like thinks, oh, let's say I do take a gap year and go to medical school. Maybe I won't be a traditional like doctor. Like maybe I'll do something with the MD, but also use like my engineering background to do things that a regular doctor otherwise wouldn't be able to do. Or maybe I do a gap year and I like the work that I'm doing so much that I say, nope, I'm not going to med school. Maybe I'll consider it again years from now. But for now, I'm just gonna like stick to doing industry, or maybe I'll go back to get to do more BME schooling. Um, I don't exactly know yet, but that's what's so great about BME is it's being BME pre-med is a lot of work because it's you have like all of like the pre-med stuff and then all of the BME stuff, but a big advantage of that is how like flexible it is. Like I can really do whatever I want to do. Um, still.
Yeah, and it's not that you have to choose. It's just I think it's great that the whole BME track has such like flexibility like that. Okay, so one more question is what advice would you each have to young people who are unsure if they should go into engineering or biomedical engineering specifically?
Do
Yeah,
it.
I can yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
at
You
least
can go first.
okay. Yeah, so for me, I guess like my advice would be that it's definitely I guess like first of all, if you're like thinking, oh, do I want to do engineering? Do I not want to do engineering? Especially like when you're just starting out in college, like freshman year, at least like here at Vanderbilt, there's not a lot of core classes that you have to take. So I didn't have to take a lot of core like BME classes my freshman year. It was sort of just a lot more of your like basic sciences. So if you're like, so it was like general chemistry, physics, calculus, like an intro to programming class, things like that. And that's something that no matter what kind of engineering you do, you're going to have to take it kind of thing. So it's not like a super hard commitment, like oh, I'm gonna choose to do BME, and after my first semester, first few quarters, I'm locked in and I'm not gonna be able to change. So there's, and it's like that for almost like any major, like starting out, you can use that first year to sort of like sample and figure out, is this what I want to do? But if you know you like doing like sciences and math and physics and things like that, I would definitely say engineering is a good place to start. I would also say it's probably easier to switch, or it's harder to switch into engineering than it is to switch from engineering to a different major, especially like once you get like started into like your second year and you start taking more like core classes in other majors. So I would say just give it a shot, like try it out. And um, it's funny because I actually know Rachel through like this program named the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. I don't know if you've like had presentations or not about that as well, Rachel, but one of their pillars that they bring up at all of their meetings is you should try pistachio ice cream, which is to say try things to see if you like them. And if you don't try them, then you're never going to know if you like it or not. So I would definitely say just try it. You can try out engineering or try out whatever you may think you find to be enjoyable. And I guess there's like a lot of flexibility within engineering and within in STEM. So and also like how I was saying before, if you're in BME but you're thinking, oh, well, I don't know if I want to do more of like a chemical engineering job or if I want to go into like more mechanical engineering, BME really covers your bases for a lot of different things. Like you can, just because you graduate with a degree in biomedical engineering doesn't mean you can't do chemical engineering work or mechanical engineering work. Yeah, so I would say it's definitely a low commitment starting out to start in BME, and then also once you're in BME, there's like also all that flexibility. But yeah, that's what I thought.
So I'm a huge proponent of people being engineers. I mean, I chose material science for undergrad and biomedical for grad school, but I worked alongside mechanical engineers and I worked alongside computer engineers. So I don't know. I know in school you feel like it's really important that you have to pick the right one, and the classes are different. But when you come out into industry, just being an engineer gets you in the door to most places. It provides you an opportunity. Having been a hiring manager for a couple years, once you know someone's made it through their engineering program, whether it was a mechanical, whether it was a BME, whether it was a material science engineering, knowing that they've been able to do the rigors of an engineering curriculum means that they have the capacity to solve problems. And that's what you're looking for, because in jobs, you're going to train them what they need to do. You're not going to go tell someone to, do some simulated model of flow of, something in a heart without them working with another more senior engineer that's been doing it, that knows what FDA wants. You're going to be working alongside teammates with some experience, and you're going to get that training. You don't need to know how to do it right out of the gate. You just need the capacity to solve problems. And I think being an engineer gives you that. I mean, by the nature of what you have to do in college, you can solve problems with crazy variables or completely unknown variables. You know that you have to go and look and dig and figure out how to solve problems. Are you guys there? Sorry, my screen went blank for a while.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
But the other thing is say you're an engineer for 5 years and you decide, I want to go be a teacher. You can totally do that with an engineering degree. Or say, you decide that you want to go into business or you want to go into finance. You just go take the test to be a CPA, and you can do that. You don't have to go back to school to be a finance major. Whereas people that have other majors can't just decide that they're going to be an engineer. Like, they have to go back to school and do the engineering program. I just feel like being an engineer gives you such a leg up and opens so many more doors that I love engineering. And I think anyone who's good at math and science should be an engineer. So, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, so I think like both of you have really emphasized how flexible engineering can be, and I think that's really great about all the different fields of engineering. But sometimes people can also, on the topic of like being Hispanic, sometimes people can feel like they're not cut out, they're not good enough at math or science, or don't have the experience or the connections. And what advice would you have as far as like that way of thinking, that like especially in regards to being Hispanic or Latino?
So I think culturally we don't ask for help very easy. I don't know why, but culturally, you're supposed to make it, figure it out on your own. At least that's how my family always was. We're from Argentina, and I mean I was actually born in Argentina, so my kids will be first generation US. We're just supposed to do the hard work and figure it out on your own. But kind of back to what Stanley was saying earlier, there are so many resources. The teachers are there, they're there for office hours. They're there, if you want to do work with them, they'll give you research projects. They'll give you ways to make your own way within engineering. There's co-ops. If you want to figure out industry, go do an internship, go do a co-op. All the major universities now have internship programs where they will help you find an internship or they'll help you find a co-op. If you don't know what kind of engineer you want to be, pick something and then go explore it. There are so many resources. You have to look for them. You have to ask for help because you're not going to figure out the whole world of engineering on your own. I mean, it could be something as simple as calculus, like I did great in Calc 1, 2, and 3, and I got to DiffyQ, and I most certainly needed help in DiffyQ because I didn't see how it fit into the real world. So you go get tutoring. I mean, there's peer tutoring at most universities, and people that are in grad school will help you, and they'll be like, I'm using this in such and such a situation, and that just puts it all into perspective for you. So you don't have to do it alone. In fact, most people that succeed in it don't do it on their own.
Yeah, I would definitely echo all of those sentiments. Like asking for help is it really is like a superpower. Just not enough people like take advantage of asking for help. I mean, like obviously, sort of like you're saying, like culturally, and then also just like human instinct. You don't want to have to, I guess, like put your pride on the line or like take that time to like be vulnerable and be like, hey, I don't know what's going on, I need help. But the earlier on that you can learn to do that, the better and more powerful that it will be um, for you. And then I was also going to add, what was I going to add? Oh man, yeah. Wait, give me a sec. I think just like keep talking about. Uh, could you wait? Just ask the question, and maybe it'll like reignite the thing in my mind.
Totally
Remind me
fine.
what the question is.
It was just about like, especially in regards to being Hispanic and Latino, that people can sometimes feel like that they're not like qualified. But what
Yeah, I
would you?
think I got it.
Yeah.
So thank you. Um, so I guess another thing that like I experienced like sort of feeling coming onto campus was sort of like the idea or feeling of imposter syndrome, just sort of when you're around like all of these other people who you feel like are way more qualified, smarter, like just they deserve to be there more than you kind of thing. That's, or at least that's how I feel. I know that's how a lot of college students in general feel, but I think what really helped me like overcome sort of some of like those barriers was like working hard and then like doing well in like whether it's a class or a certain, even if it's just like one test, and sort of using each of your successes as like a way to build confidence in yourself, no matter like how big or small that may be. um, and just, yeah, I guess in general just being confident that like you are good enough, like you do belong where you are, you do belong where you get to, you can compete with anybody and everybody who else like may be there regardless of their background or experience. um, I think that's like definitely helped me, um, just like being more confident in classes, and as far as just like applying to like internships or like research. um, I think being confident is also like very important and something that um, you have to intentionally sort of reinforce to yourself, like as far as, oh, like congratulate yourself or like celebrate the things like the milestones that you make. It's it's like important that you're hearing that you are good enough to do what you're doing.
So I had a professor, it was one of my senior year professors, and he asked, it was about halfway through the semester, how many of us thought that we knew enough to graduate? Nobody did. I mean, everyone thinks that they don't know enough to be able to do what we do, but we do. I mean, what we're learning is how to solve problems. You're not going to solve every problem before you graduate college. You know, that's what the rest of your life is for, to find problems to solve them. But I think imposter syndrome is a real thing, and I think a huge majority of the people feel that way. And once you realize that you're not the only one who feels that way, you have the confidence to just put one foot in front of the other and make your dreams happen, because there's nobody better to do what you want to do than you.
Yeah, that's really great. So thank you guys so much. Those are my questions, and all your answers were super insightful, but I'll turn it over to the people who showed up. If you guys have any questions, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat. We'll see if we can answer it. Don't be shy. And then after that, you guys are free to go, but do you guys have any questions? Oh, okay, so we have one in the chat here. How important would you guys say networking or connections with other people, specifically students, is in school, and how those relationships help you after graduating?
So I think it's important to have relationships with people in school, but it's really just important for your first step, or maybe your first two steps outside of graduating, because by then, once you get into the workforce, you're going to make a name for yourself. You know, you engineers, we always work in teams. So you're going to end up having relationships. And, you know, once you get out into the real world, you have a boss, and your boss can nominate you for awards, and your team members can nominate you for awards. I mean, if the organization allows for it, right? And so once you step foot into the real world, you're almost starting with a clean slate. For some people, that's great. So for some people, that's frustrating because they had a very successful college career. But you have to prove yourself once you get out into industry. You just have to. There's nothing, you know, no 5.8 GPA is going to help you with anything other than landing your first job. After that, it's what you do at your first job that matters, in my experience.
Yeah, I guess like one thing that I can add, especially like as far as the importance of networking within college, since I haven't graduated yet, I know talking to like a lot of friends or other people who I've met that are like older and like I guess only a few years older and who sort of like just have their first job now outside of school. I think I wouldn't be surprised if more people find their job like after they graduate because of some sort of like connection that they've made with somebody, as opposed to just filling out a traditional like job application and then going through like that process. So I also think you can definitely leverage your network within school to find opportunities, whether it's a job after you graduate or like an internship or something you do over the summer. Like for example, 2 summers ago, I was wanting to do research over the summer, and I was looking at different labs that I thought were interesting here at like Vanderbilt, on Vanderbilt's campus. And one of one of the labs that I found was interesting, I found like where the professor's office was, and I went and like knocked on her door, and I was like, hey, do you have like time for me to come in and talk to you for a little bit? And she was like, yeah, sure, come in. And I had a conversation with her, and I was like, oh, I think it'd be interesting to do research with you over the summer. I'm wanting to do research over the summer, and your lab seemed really interesting. And she was like, oh, that'd be great. And let me like check this and this and this, and then we can like have another conversation next week. And like 2 or 3 conversations later, and I like had a research opportunity and sort of like that. Whereas like other friends of mine were like stressing out doing a bunch of like research applications and applying to other places outside of Vandy. So you can definitely use your network to within school to find starting opportunities, whether it be internships or research, things like that.
Yeah, that's great. I think networking is one of the biggest like parts of college nowadays, and definitely it makes sense to take advantage of it. So great. And do we have any other questions? If not, we'll move on. And then I just want to thank you both for coming. And I know you both have busy schedules, so yeah, you're free to go. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. And once again, this video is going to be uploaded to YouTube. So if anyone watching the video has any questions, they can contact me at my email, which will be in the description. And I'm sure you guys would be willing to answer questions if they wanted to reach out too. So I'll provide your information there too. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Great.
thank you for having us. And yeah, please, you can give out my contact information. If you have any questions about like college or BME stuff or applying to college, things like that, I'm here to help. So,
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
all right.
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Bye.